Hey, everybody, it's the Church Revitalization Podcast, and we're talking about 4 things your church consultant doesn't want to hear you say. Let's go.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malfers Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and A.J. Mathieu.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, A.J. Mathieu. Okay, today, it may not be Festivus, but what is it that George's dad says at Festivus? I got a lot of problems with you people, and
the airing of grievances.
Yeah, the airing of grievances.
That's one of the components of Festivus. Yeah.
Yep. And today you're all going to hear about it. There are a few things that we hear you people say sometimes when we work with you.
You people.
And they annoy us, these things that we hear you say. And whether you work with us or you work with some other church consultant in the future or just some outsider, I think these things are common enough that probably other people hear them too, and they hate them as much as we do. So we're here to help you out. We're also here to get to the bottom of why you say these things and maybe, hopefully, help you to deal with those issues, like why you say these things in the first place. Finally, before we get started with these 4 sayings that we never want to hear come out of your mouth, we want to remind you about the Church Checkup Challenge. It's the beginning of the year. It's a great time to reflect and think about what's coming up and in the coming year, and are we healthy, and kind of just looking at that dashboard of health and see if there's any warning signs, any red flags, any things that you maybe need to deal with. And that is free. So if you go to malfersgroup.com/challenge, malfersgroup.com/challenge, sign up for that. Again, it's totally free, and it includes 7 days of access to the Healthy Churches Toolkit. No credit card required, so here's your chance to check out the Healthy Churches Toolkit. No strings attached. So hop in there. Looking forward to hearing how the Lord uses that resource to bless your church. So
that's been a hit. There's a lot of people that have signed up for that. So peer pressure. Everybody else is doing it. You should too.
That's right. Many such cases of people joining it and having a great experience. So don't be lame and miss out, because you only have until the end of the month to sign up. All right, so let's dive into these things that we don't ever want to hear you say.
All right, so the first one is that everybody says we are the friendliest church they have visited. Everybody. Yes. So first of all, we're going to pick this one apart, Scott. Everybody. We do frequently get like these absolutes, speaking in absolutes, never, always, everybody. And some of this is just like just casual language, habits, I think. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, you and I, Scott, we certainly hone in on words. Words matter. And I think, there's a subconscious element to that too. Whenever we're speaking in absolutes, I think it tends to kind of maybe close down options subconsciously sometimes intentionally. But yeah, everybody says we're the friendliest church. So friendliest. We hear friendly a lot, don't we?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I think I have visited, it's like an Elf. You ever seen the movie Elf?
Yeah.
And, the restaurant, the little cafe there that says the world's best cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And, Will Ferrell runs in, you did it! Like, congratulations! It's a little bit like that, where you're putting that, you're wearing that label, like the world's friendliest church, and it may not be so. And here's why this happens. When you say everybody, what you mean is everybody who stayed. You know who didn't think you were the friendliest church they ever visited? The people who never came back. Right?
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, because I hear this from churches that have been in decline for years, and they go, "Oh man, we're known for being friendly." I'm like, really? Where's the proof of that? Show me.
Yeah.
What's the evidence? And so you're friendly with the people you know. Again, that would be weird if you weren't.
Yeah. Well, there's a thing. Pastors sometimes, and we're frequently speaking with pastors. I mean, sometimes it's other council leaders, elders, things like that. Our conversations, it's not normally just some random person in a congregation that calls us up and then has a long discussion about their church and hires us to do work. So pastors live in a specific kind of bubble frequently, though. Now, there's a lot of negative sides to pastors who may not actually have really true, deep relationships or people that they can confide in. These are true things, but they also are flooded with superficial relationships, at least. And a Sunday can feel very, very friendly. Everybody wants to greet you. You're the pastor, or maybe you're the elder. You're on staff. You are by default popular. And there's another circle of people in the church that are also by default popular. And I think, and with no ill intent, they project that out onto everybody. They think this is everyone's experience, and it's often not. Mm-hmm. And so I don't mean to, anything negative against these people. That is their lived experience, is that the church is very friendly. And they probably like being there and they want to see those people and they want to have those conversations, but it's just not everybody's experience. And so we've got to be intentional about trying to change our perspective or get someone else's point of view, either somebody in the church or a consultant, disconnected third party view. But this is a real thing.
Yeah, it's a real thing. So there are two other I don't want to get stuck on the first of these four things for too long, but just briefly, there's two other issues with this statement. One, it would be, what do you mean by friendly? What does that even mean? And what like that you greet people when they come in, that you give them a firm handshake and a warm smile. Not that that's for nothing, but is that what a friend is? I mean, I can get that. I get that at the gas station. For the most part, you can walk in and get a hello. I mean, I don't necessarily pick my gas station based on where they greeted me.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's pretty bare minimum. You're like, we notice people when they walk in and say hello to them. Congratulations. I mean, what do you want? A gold star? Like that? Is that what friendly means? What do you mean by that? So I think friendly is an ill-defined term or just a totally undefined term. Like, I don't know what you mean by you're friendly.
Yeah, that's true. And, another word that gets put into the same sentence in place of friendly is welcoming. We're a very welcoming church, which is really a lower level than friendly. Like, if you're not a welcoming church, you really have problems.
Yeah.
The worst of churches would be welcoming. I mean, let's at least get that,
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So that'd be my one problem. So of all the problems, one, it might not be true. Two, I don't know what you mean by friendly or welcoming. Like, what does that even mean? How are you defining that? And three, to what end? Even if it were true, even if the statement were true that you are the most welcoming or the friendliest church that a person has ever visited, how does that make a person more or less of a disciple? I mean, you could say, well, it helps open up a door for discipleship. Okay. And I would agree with you. I mean, I'm not suggesting that you not be friendly. I don't want you to hear me say that. But if that's the start and stop of it, if that's the beginning and end of it, that's not even a very good accolade to throw on yourself. Because if that friendliness or welcoming or hospitality or whatever does not bear discipleship fruit, it's useless. So even if it were true, and I would contend that in many cases it's not, and even if you knew what you meant by friendly or welcoming, and I would contend that in many cases you did not, if that does not lead to discipleship, then it's not really all that great of a compliment.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, go ahead and get that right. Let's get this right. But that's step one of several.
It's step 0.5.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it isn't the accolade that the people who say this think that it is.
That's true. I kind of get what you're trying to project out here. Yes, it is very elementary. Yeah, I see why you're stressing this now.
Yeah, right. It's less true than most churches think it is when they say it, for one. And even if it was true, it doesn't amount to much of anything in terms of determining whether or not your church is healthy.
That's true. Such so as if this is one of the things that you're telling somebody that you've just met, you probably don't have much to talk about. If this is one of the top things you want to tell about your church, you probably are missing a lot of way more important things.
Sounds pretty shallow.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. So how's that for tough, hard things?
That's a tough start.
I'm just telling you, I don't love hearing it because I'm like, all right, because I haven't met a church that doesn't think this about themselves. I don't know that I've met one.
We haven't endeared the audience to us on this episode.
So just don't say it. How about that? All right, let's go to.
All right,
now we're really
for the
you're gonna hate this one next. Okay, let's go to number 2.
Yeah, this is
we're about to throw a grenade. Okay, go ahead.
Pull over. Don't listen to this one while you're driving. Here we go. Number 2, quote: "People leave other churches and come here to heal." Oh, ouch!
I hate this one. I hate it for so many reasons. Let me count the ways. But I'll let you go first.
And this one manifests itself. This plays out in policies of the church and ministries of the church. Actually, this one can kind of really get into culture and not be superficial like our first point. And one of the ways that I see this connected with the behaviors of the church is limiting people in when they can serve in the church, because they have this perspective of and hey, we are not downplaying that churches hurt people. Okay. Churches in the sense of, in the definition of an assembly of people that are attempting to, or say they put Christ first, just have bad and sinful behavior, and people leave. And sometimes it is extremely necessary that people get out of those groups of people.
Yes. We get a lot of those comments. Actually.
Yeah. There's no doubt people get hurt going to church emotionally. I mean, unfortunately, sometimes physically, but emotional damage happens to people. Going then to a healthy church, or finding a healthy church environment, should not be a component in which you then don't need to do anything. You don't need to live out the normal Christian experience that Scripture would call us into. And so a lot of churches are like, we don't want you doing anything. And they wear this as a badge of honor. Like, oh, no, you can't even serve here. You just need to take some time and heal before, you become a greeter, or, or you serve, you're a teacher, or you serve on a board or committee. And I just don't even see the connection between these things at all. To me, a healthy church would embrace you, bring you in, and make you a part of the fellowship in all aspects. Unless you are like, you know what? No, I definitely can't. I don't want to be in this space over here because of a bad situation that I came out of. And, I would like to take some time to get to know you. And to me, it should be driven more by the individual, not by the church. And the church should be drawing people in, not holding them at bay.
Yes. Okay. So I think your caveats.
There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. I think your caveats are good in saying that churches really do hurt people. People really do come into a church sometimes bringing in pain. Sometimes it's church hurt pain. Sometimes it's also pain from life, or any other number of things, right? And it's also true that people come to churches to experience healing. All of that is true. But when we hear churches say the phrase, people leave other churches to come to our church to heal, as you said, the subtext of that most times, I won't say every time, but most times, is people like to come and sit in the back, be a little anonymous. We're very friendly, If we're very welcoming, so people can come in and they can sit in the back and they can be anonymous and they don't have to engage, and we don't expect a lot from them. We're not asking them to pull their weight or anyone else's, or pitch in or give or serve or even do anything other than show up on a Sunday morning. We're happy to let them sit there for as long as they need to until they're ready. And the burden kind of gets shifted towards them. And I can say with some degree of authority from my own life experience, having been deeply wounded, have been on staff in a church that, and gotten chewed up and spitting out, which I've referenced a time or two on the podcast. Having been through something like that, I can tell you just how incredibly unhelpful it is actually to be anonymous. The path towards healing comes through engagement in community and using your gifts to build up the body. That's how we heal. So if you've come out of something totally traumatic, taking a few weeks to catch your breath, I'm not going to judge that. I know exactly what that feels like. But putting no pressure on a person to engage, I would say not only is it not good, it's anti-Christ. I'm not anti-Christ, but it doesn't align with the teaching of Jesus at all. Here you have, I can give you a couple of examples. Most basically, Jesus says, hey, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself, pick up his cross, the instrument with which he is going to be killed. Pick up his cross and follow me. That's what Jesus teaches in Matthew. If in Luke chapter 9, a guy comes to Jesus and says, hey, I will follow you wherever you go. He puts it all on the line. And then Jesus goes, all right, foxes have dens, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. So you know what this means, right? It's going to cost you everything. Another guy says, he said to another man, follow me. He calls out to someone and he goes, hey, I want to. First, let me go and bury my dad just died. Can I go do the funeral? And Jesus says, let the dead bury the dead. But so he's like, here's a guy who, if dad just died, he's probably feeling some pain, right? He's probably feeling a little bit of trauma. And Jesus says, no, come follow me. Now's the moment. This is in your pain, find your healing in me by sacrificing yourself for the sake of following me. So these are obviously extreme examples of what Jesus is saying, but I don't know why we would say in our churches not only something that is a moderated version of what Jesus is saying, but actually the complete opposite of what Jesus is saying. It couldn't be anywhere. It's not even in the same galaxy as what Jesus is saying. We're saying we expect nothing from you.
Yeah.
And because we are Christ's representatives on earth, we're essentially teaching Christ expects nothing from you. That's just not true. He expects nothing from us in terms of our salvation. That work is done. But in terms of our obedience and our faithfulness and our commitment to him, he expects everything, actually.
Yeah.
So I hate when I hear churches say that, because what that communicates to me is this is a place where I'm going to go and you expect very little from me. And you probably have a whole bunch of people who are burning out as a result of that, actually.
Mm. Yeah, because we expect everything from some and nothing from
other. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, our default needs to be engagement in a fellowship, a relational level, engagement in a service level, with the flexibility to be able to meet people where they are and come alongside them wherever they are. That should be the default. The default should not be hands off until you think you're ready, and then we'll attempt to do something with you. And we miss so much opportunity that way because people very quickly get into habits and comfort zones. And if your church's default is individualistic, quiet, hands off, that will quickly become the cultural norm. And then the laws of physics come into play. Trying to get a stationary object into motion requires a lot of energy. And so,
I could talk, AJ, for an hour on all the reasons why everything about this statement is false. I can give Bible reference after Bible reference. I'll throw a few more out there. The story of the Samaritan woman. Was it John? Is it 6, 4? I can't remember. But here's a woman. She's going in the middle of the day to get her water, which is not the right time to go get the water because it's so hot. But she's going in the middle of the day because she's going alone. She's going because she doesn't want the prying eyes and the murmurs and all of that. She's hurting. And Jesus goes and speaks to her. Anyway, he engages her in that, calls her out on her sin, actually, calls her to repentance, and then she goes and she engages in community. Her healing comes from engaging the rest of the community and saying, here's a man, he told me everything I ever did. Right? Or you look at Elijah. Elijah goes to the top of the mountain, Mount Horeb. He's asking God to destroy Israel because of their unfaithfulness. And when God finally speaks to him in the still small voice, he doesn't bring the fire. He tells him to go down because Elijah says, I'm alone. I'm the only one left. And he's like, actually, you're not. So he tells him to go down the mountain and to find Elisha and to make a friend. He basically says, you need to engage in community. Is essentially what he says. And never again in the rest of his story is he alone. He engages in community and he finds healing. We're told in the epistles that confess your sins one to another that you may be healed. Healing comes from confession in community, not just by confessing to God, but by confession in community. That's where healing comes from. So everything that you think, when you think it's good for people to be able to sit and to soak and to disengage and to be anonymous, it's so people can heal. It's not only not good because it's not what Christ taught, it's also not good for their healing. That's not actually how people heal. People heal when they engage in community, not when they withdraw from it and be anonymous within it.
Yeah.
So for all of these reasons, please don't ever say that. I hate it. It's wrong. It's not true. People aren't healing. It's not good. There you go. Here's my...
Yeah. Man, I concur. I'm totally with you on this one. Yeah. Okay. Hey, let's carry on. We can't stop here.
Why stop it? Why stop now? We got 2 more.
All right. Our third one. Here we go. I mean, slightly light, slightly
okay, a little bit lighter. Yeah, a little bit lighter.
Half the church will probably leave if we fill in the blank. Whatever change you're going to finish that sentence with, something other than the status quo. And this goes back to our first one, using the word everybody. Half the church. That seems like the default quantity of people that will leave.
You had written this originally as something else, and I was like, I don't know that I ever hear churches say that the way that you've written it.
Yeah, they might say, a lot of people, everybody.
No. But when you wrote half the church would probably, I was like, oh yeah, I hear that specific phrasing a lot.
Yeah, half the church, and again, you might go, oh well, this is just flippant speech. Yes, I think that's true. It is just flippant speech. But there's some consciousness to words that we choose to use. And this is a sentence that is uttered very quickly after we might suggest or, ask a question about, well, could we do that? Or would this be an option? Oh, no, half the church would leave. It's a very fast response. It's not a thought out response, but I think there's subconsciousness to it in a resistance to change. And
I can't... There's different motivations behind it.
Yeah.
It can vary from situation to situation, but it is a statement that is designed to shut down any more discussion. For whatever reason, the motivations are vary. But
this
it's a conversation killer. You say that, and it's like, well, then I guess we can't talk about it.
Yeah, and anybody could say this, and this isn't necessarily on like a first meeting, a first call that we might have with somebody and spoken directly to us. This could be when we're working, we have our strategic leadership team together, there's discussion happening, and any one of those team members might respond to somebody else's suggestion with that sentence. Half the church would probably leave if we did that. And it's well, it's just wrong. I mean, yeah, if it's something ridiculous, like, let's quit using the Bible. Let's just, there's
hopefully more than half the church would leave.
Yeah. Yeah. We can expect half the church to probably leave if we did that. But a lot of this stuff is super minor. Like, let's change the time that Sunday school meets. Let's quit doing Sunday school. Let's start doing Sunday school. Anything.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Half the church would probably leave if we did that. No, probably not. You're
probably not. Yeah. And it's always half the church. And so, yeah, you can just pick this thing apart and go, half the church? Really? I don't think so. And would they leave? Or would they just complain? And also, how many people? Half the people wouldn't even complain.
Yeah, that's right.
So, if you hear this in a conversation, because again, I maybe hear this as much, as you said, AJ, in team members speaking to each other than them saying it to us.
Yeah.
But I would push on that and go, who would leave? Well, maybe they wouldn't leave, but they might complain. How many people are we talking about?
Yeah. Depending on the person and the personality, they might actually hold on to this and be unwilling to budge from it. But more frequently, I think, we try not to be harsh speakers with anybody. I mean, we try to really
speak for yourself.
You're harsher than I am, surprisingly. But a lot of times we can, in a respectful and gentle way, we can kind of challenge this, and because sometimes it only takes just a few minutes of thought to go, okay, you know what? Yeah, it wouldn't be that bad. And here's maybe what we realistically could expect. And okay, if we went about it this way, maybe we could actually get this to work. So
yeah. I think it's a totally legitimate question to say, okay, well, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Sure.
So to speak, and go, all right, this is going to cause pushback, and is there enough upside to this that it's worth the pushback? That is a legit, that does not annoy me when I hear that. What I don't want to hear is half the church would leave, because that's not true. And that's a statement designed either motivated by fear or laziness or whatever else, to just shut down further discussion. So have a real discussion about what the consequences of a change would be as best as you can measure it, and then weigh that and go, all right, is this worth the change? Change for change's sake's no good, but sometimes change is necessary. And if it is, then you just make a plan for mitigating the pushback as best you can. But don't say half the church will leave, because that's not productive. But if in the end you decide not to make a decision because the pushback isn't worth it, for example, the conversation, I mentioned this, I think in last week's episode, about the oranges and that we give out at Christmas time.
Uh-huh.
There's a certain older contingent in the church that would push back. And it's just not that much of a budget consequence, and it's just not that much work for the church to pull it off, that it's worth upsetting that 30 or 40 people in the church who would complain about it. That's the decision, is like, why? Why upset them? It's just not that big of a deal. I think it's stupid. I don't think it moves the church forward. It's a waste of money.
Yeah.
We could do something more productive with that. But at the end of the day, that the discussion was had. I mean, literally, I heard something like, "Oh, people would leave." I'm like, really? I pushed on that, and then the discussion was, well, there are a certain subset of people who would be really upset if we changed it, and it's just not that big of a deal, and it's just not that hard to pull off, and it's just not that expensive.
Yeah.
And so, it's not worth it. The orange juice is not worth the squeeze. We're getting rid of it. So if in the end you decide to keep something because it's not worth it, that's fine. But don't say half the church is going to leave. Have a real conversation.
I think kind of a sub, this is, slightly a digression here, but it's also not all, everything is not always all or nothing. We don't have to quit giving oranges at Christmas to start doing something, to start a new tradition or try something new. It doesn't, in some cases, you need to stop doing that. Giving somebody an orange isn't one of those things. As you said, there's no budget consequence to it. It's just not that big of a deal, but it should not be a barrier to maybe integrating something new or different also.
Is right. All right, one more. Last one.
We made it. Number 4. This is
kind of niche. I was going to
say
a
little bit niche. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and set this up. That this is most often heard in the implementation phase of the work. Like, we've done a lot of planning. The teams are ready to get going, and we're very prescriptive in how to go through the implementation process. And spoiler alert, is meeting monthly. I mean, the team needs to continue to meet monthly, hold each other accountable, and make progress on things. And what we get is we won't be able to get all of our people to meet every month. That's just going to be too intense of a schedule. We'll meet as needed, or we already have a quarterly meeting. We'll do that.
Yep. And can't we just meet online?
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll meet online.
Yeah. Can't our teams just meet when they want to, and then we'll do our whole team once a quarter? They'll try to kind of like find some loophole way of doing it. And I always say, look, it's your church. I'm not going to tell you what you have to do, but if you're asking what works best and what's going to lead to the best results, what gets work done changes from church to church, and the projects change from church to church. All of that's always different, but the process we prescribe is pretty specific. Do it this way. And I always tell them, you do the process the way that we outline it, you will be successful. I have 0 churches I've ever worked with that followed the process the way that we asked them to, didn't see success.
Yeah.
All of them did.
That is true. I can think of 0 instances in which somebody said, I don't think we want to do it your way. We want to do it in a less frequent way, and had success.
Well, they may have had some success, but not.
Yeah, to the same level or pace.
Right.
But I've also had several that started off not really heeding that. And several months in, we're like, we're going
to hit the reset button. We're going
to change and do that. Yeah.
It's called repentance right there. Not of sin, but of process.
Yeah. Turn away from your lack of meeting to that which we prescribe. So yeah, we can't get, but this isn't always in this. I mean, it can be other things too. Like, I don't think we will be able to there's no way we could do training for our leaders. They're not gonna come to that.
Our folks won't do XYZ thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Again, it's a discussion killer. Yeah.
It is a discussion killer, but also, another thing requires some investigation. Go, well, why? And who was I meeting with? Well, I wouldn't out them anyway. But I was meeting with one church recently. I'm trying to think of who it was. I remember. Oh yeah, okay, I won't out them. And they were explaining to me an event that they had, and it was very poorly attended by their volunteers. And I had them explain to me what the event was and when it was timed and all of this, and I was like, I wouldn't go to that either. I was just really honest. I'd be like, I wouldn't do that. And I kind of laid out all of these expectations that they had for that volunteer team, and then put it in context and said, why would I go to that event that was poorly attended? And the staff person was like, it's a great point. I'm like, you have to think about these things from your volunteers' point of view. So if we do stack our folks with 19 things, then you're probably right. You won't get them to come to everything, but it's about prioritizing and go, all right, if we have people on this strategic leadership team, we can't have them on 10 other teams doing 10 other things and 10 other meetings and expect them to come every month. But if we put them on this team and this team is important, and we help them to maybe shed off some of their other responsibilities so that during this year that we're going through strategic envisioning, they have the margin to be engaged in this process, then it is possible to get them to come. The other thing I would say is it's as important to the team as it is to you, in the sense that if you don't set a regular meeting time, we're going to meet the second Tuesday of the month. We're going to meet the third Sunday afternoon of the month after church, whatever it is. And every time you're just trying to figure out from month to month when you're going to meet and when is everyone available, you're placing their schedule above, like you're making that the priority and going, well, we have to figure out everybody's schedule and then we can figure out when the meeting is, versus setting the meeting time and asking people to build their schedule around when the meeting is. So when you prioritize the meeting and go, this is when the meeting is, then people can plan for that and they can account for it and they can go, oh, okay, I have to say no to this other thing because I've already said yes to this team and it meets the third Sunday of the month. Does that make sense? So some of that is just how you go about planning it and how you go about communicating it and who you put on the team and how you can create margin for them. So it is absolutely possible to get people to meet every month. I would also say it's not important that every person from your team be there every month. So if you've got 10% of the team on any given month can't be there because of an obligation, that's not a reason to not have the meeting.
Yeah.
To have 90%, certainly more than a quorum, you're going to have the meeting, and it shows that meeting is important. So there's lots of reasons why this is a bogus nonsense thing for churches to say, but I understand why churches say it, but we do kind of have to chip away at all those excuses in order for them to make it happen.
Yeah, it always makes me ask the question, sometimes verbally, almost every time in my mind, who exactly is in charge here? Some of the Americanism phrases, might be tail wagging the dog or inmates running the asylum. Like, is anybody actually leading here, or are you just trying to keep the wheels from coming off and everybody just leaving? So I think the quality of leader, and I don't mean that we should be driving people into the ground, but great leaders encourage, great leaders project great vision. They encourage people and they tell them why something is going to be better for them and for everybody, to the point that people are like, I want to go there. I want to go where you're saying we're going. And if you don't take the time to do that and attempt to be that quality of leader, then people are just gonna be like, I don't want to do that. And then are you really leading at that point? So it's a leadership issue. For sure.
All right. Well, we were going to originally, when we were planning this episode, we were going to do 5 things, and then we narrowed it down to 4 instead.
You could not handle 5.
Yeah, so I think it's good that we narrowed it down to 4. One, we're already at 37 minutes on this episode or something like that. So, so we'll save you. We'll spare you for the 5th thing. But appreciate you guys listening. Want to remind you, please go to malfirstgroup.com/challenge and sign up for that. It's free. It's 7 days, includes the toolkit access for those 7 days. No credit card required. Join all the other people. Don't be lame. Don't miss out. Don't be a square, as we used to say back in the probably before I was born.
Yeah. Don't say I could never do anything for 7 days.
I could never do it.
You can.
I don't have the time. You do have the time. The videos that are in the challenge are like 5 or 6 minutes. They're not podcast length. So you can do this. So do that. And then read today's article at malfirstgroup.com/273, malfirstgroup.com/273. And that's where you will read today's show notes, today's article. And appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Can't wait to see you next week.